Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivarathari Gopi Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivarathari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivarathari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivarathari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Yamuna Tira Banacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivarathari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivarathari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jai Nitya Vishnu Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parivrajakacharya Asto Tarastata Shri Shrimad His Divine Grace of High Charanada Vinda Bhaktivinoda Swami Prabhupada Ki ISKCON PBP Founder Acharya Save the whole world Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitya Vishnu Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parivrajakacharya Asto Tarastata Shri Shrimad His Divine Grace of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Sari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gokopanath Shamakund Radha Kundagiri Govardhana Ki Braj Bhumi Shivindama Dama Ki Navadvip Mayapur Dama Ki Purushtam Chitra Jagannathpuri Dama Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Maharani Ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi all glorious devotees, all glorious devotees, all glorious devotees, all glorious, Lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Garanga, all glorious to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. You don't need to.
Hare Krishna. We are extremely fortunate to have the association of His Grace Narasimha Kavach Prabhu here today. Prabhu is very well known because he's the ISKCON DT Worship Minister, and for last several decades he has been working very hard to, although DT Worship is very organized in one sense, but ISKCON being filled with a lot of variety and temples all across the planet, there's a lot of variation and differences in the training and other things. So Prabhu has been working hard to streamline the DT Worship process and document it well, and in that line, he also organized the Mayapur Academy 2 decades back at Sridham Mayapur, through which there are many, many devotees whom he trains across the world in the process of DT worship. So this has been a very great contribution because Srila Prabhupada was always very concerned that if there are changes made in the DT worship standard, then it will be very dangerous for our society. Prabhupada wrote in a letter to His Grace Dhruvanand Prabhu that the greatest danger for our society will come when devotees will make changes in the DT worship process. So he's very keen and very concerned to see that the deities are worshipped with great love and devotion all across our movement, and that's why he travels to different temples to monitor the standard and educate and train the devotees, and he also does that in the Mayapur Academy. So we are very fortunate. We have very regular guidance from him in our NVCC temple. He has visited us several times before also and guided us on the right ways and the right mood to worship the deity. So we are fortunate that we are having him here. Prabhuji came for the teaching the I-Leads student, the ISKCON leaders for today and tomorrow, and to emphasize how deity worship is a very, very integral and vital part of managing a community. Deity worship is the center of the entire community. Oftentimes it gets neglected in other processes. So to train the leaders, he has come, and we are fortunate to get his association. And Prabhuji will continue to be with us till the GVC meeting, where he'll be participating in the GVC meetings. So let us welcome him at Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra Temple by once very loudly chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Sukuruvacha Vritre. I can't read that. I don't know what that says. Huh? Oh, it's 2. Okay, because 1's the verse. Okay. Devarishi Pitri Bhutani Daitya. Oh, sorry. Devarshi Pitri Bhutani. Devarshi Pitri Bhutani. Daitya Devanuga Swayam. Daitya Devanuga Swayam. Daitya Devanuga Swayam. Devarishi Pitra Bhutani. Daitya Devanuga Swayam. Pratijagmu Swa Disnyani. Pratijagmu Sadisnyani. Pratijagmu Sadishyani. Brahmeshendra Dayas Tata. Brahmeshendra Dayas Tata. Brahmeshendra Dayas Tata. Pratijagmu Sadisnyani. Brahmeshendra Dayastata. Devarishi Pitrabhutani. Daitya Devanugasvayam. Pratijagmu Sadisnyani. Brahmeshendra Dayastata. Devarishi Pitrabhutani. Daitya Devanugasvayam. Pratijagmu Sadisnyani. Brahmeshendra Dayastata. Deva, demigods, Rishi, great saintly persons, Pitri, the inhabitants of Pitri-loka, Bhutani, and the other living entities, Daitya, demons. Deva Anuga, the inhabitants of other planets, following the principles of the demigods. Swayam, independently, without asking permission from Indra. Pratijagmu, returned. Sadisnyani, to their respective planets and homes. Brahma, Lord Brahma. Isha, Lord Shiva. Indra Adaya, and the demigods headed by Indra. Tata, thereafter. Translation. Thereafter, the demigods, the great saintly persons, the inhabitants of Pitriloka and Bhutaloka, the demons, the followers of the demigods, and also Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the demigods subordinate to Indra, all returned to their respective homes. While departing, however, no one spoke to Indra responsively. Thereafter, the demigods, the great saintly persons, the inhabitants of Pitriloka and Bhutaloka, the demons, the followers of the demigods, and also Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the demigods subordinate to Indra, all returned to their respective homes. While departing, however, no one spoke to Indra. It's kind of interesting. He's just killed, they're all freaked out about this demon, right? Vritrasura. And he's just killed the demon, and they don't even say thank you. Right? It's interesting. It's almost like this is kind of compounding Indra's feelings, because he's feeling, I've done something wrong here. I've committed a sinful activity. And the fact that no one spoke to him, it just deepened his shame. He felt even worse because they didn't speak to him. So it's really interesting the way this whole pastime unfolds. I'll read the first verse also. Sri Sukravacha vritte hatatrayo loka vina shakrena burida sapala yabhavan sadyo vijvara nivritendriya. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, O King Parikshit, who are so charitably disposed, when Vritrasura was killed, all the presiding deities and everyone else in the three planetary systems was immediately pleased and free from trouble. Everyone, that is, except Indra. And today's translation. Thereafter the demigods, the great saintly persons, the inhabitants of Pitriloka and Bhutaloka, the demons, the followers of the demigods, and also Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the demigods, subordinate to Indra, all returned to their respective homes. While departing, however, no one spoke to Indra. Prabhupada's purport. In this connection, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, Brahmesendra daya iti indrasya sva disnya gramanam nopa padyate vratra vada chana eva brahma hatyo padrava prapte tasmat tatta ityanena manasa sarovarad agatya pravatitad ashamedatat parata iti vakyayam. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the other demigods returned to their respective abodes, but Indra did not, for he was disturbed at having killed Vritrasura, who was actually a Brahmana. After killing Vritrasura, Indra went to the Manasa Sarovar lake to become free from sinful reactions. When he left the lake, he performed an Ashwamedha Yajna and then returned to his own abode. So this is a really interesting pastime. As we see with all these different pastimes that are being described here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, they're very instructive for us. There's a lot of information we can gain from these pastimes if we take the time to study them very carefully. And so this particular pastime, there's 19 chapters in the 6th canto. This particular pastime takes 10 chapters, so it takes most of the 6th canto. And in the beginning we see what what led to this was that Indra had disrespected Brihaspati. What happened was Indra was sitting on his throne, surrounded by all his courtesans and so much opulence, wealth, etc., etc. And Brihaspati came to see him, and he didn't get off his throne and offer him respect. Can we think of another example in the Bhagavatam that's very similar to this? A very prominent example. Anyone think of it? Ramaharshan. So, yeah, when Balaram came and he was sitting on his throne, he was thinking he was very important because he was the leader of the assembly, and therefore everyone was offering him respects to him. And when Balaram came, he thought, well, I don't have to get down and offer respects to him because I'm the leader of the assembly. I'm on the big seat. And he became proud. And this is very dangerous, especially if the Supreme Personality, especially Balaram, because Balaram is known for his, different nature sometimes. He does things which are not like other people do. Sometimes he's seen as a bit of an avadut, especially when he's in the form of Nityananda. A bit of an avadut, he does unusual things. And so he took a blade of grass and he just touched Ramaharshan, killed him instantly. There's a concept they have in Kung Fu called the 1-inch punch, where you just move your hand 1 inch and you just knock a person flying. So this seems to be something that came from Balaram, because he just takes a blade of grass and touches the person and he kills him. It's very, very powerful. Anyhow, so we see that what happened to Indra was he disrespected his guru. Now, obviously, we understand every morning we sing this Yasya Prasada, Bhagavad Prasada, Yasya Prasada, Nagati Kutopi. That with the mercy of the guru, one can achieve the supreme destination, but without the mercy of the guru, Nagati Kutopi. You're not going anywhere. You're going to stay here in this material world. So, in the same way we see with Lord Indra, is he had disrespected his spiritual master, and this led to his downfall. Because he had disrespected his guru, his guru left the place and he disappeared. And therefore they didn't have a guide. And there's a similar story in the Mahabharata, when the Pandavas, I can't remember all the names, I think they came upon they were traveling through the forest, they had lamps and stuff like that, and they came upon this Kshatriya, a Gandharva, and the Gandharva attacked them. And I can't remember all the detail of the story, but essentially what they're saying, the Gandharva explained to them later on, is I attacked you because you don't have a guru, you don't have a brahmana leading you. And so in Vedic culture, it's very important in Vedic society for someone especially someone who's like in the upper classes, Kshatriyas and Brahmanas, to have a guru. It's a very important part of the culture, because without the guru, without having this spiritual guide, you don't know how to act, because the guru guides us. And we see also in the culture, you'll see that there's different types of gurus. Obviously, you have the Kula guru, which essentially is not very helpful. The Kula guru will just basically helps you with material life. But really, what we need is a guru who is able to lead us on the path of spiritual life. And Brihaspati he was to some extent leading them on the path of spiritual life, but also he was guiding the devatas in their material life as well. But nonetheless, they still, without that guide of the guru, they lost direction and they were defeated, because the Daityas heard that they don't have a guru, so they thought, great, now's the time to attack, because they won't have direction. So they attacked the Devatas and they defeated them. And then they were advised to, because they didn't have a guru, the reason we were defeated is because we don't have a spiritual master, we don't have a guru, so we need a guru to get back our kingdom. So then they took shelter of, what's his name? Starts with a V. Vishvarupa. But Vishvarupa, he had an affinity for the Daityas. Even though he agreed to take on this role, and he performed sacrifices for the pleasure of the Devatas, but also for their prosperity. But at the same time, he was secretly offering oblations on behalf of the Daityas, when Indra heard about this, he became enraged. So he killed him immediately, cut off his head. And then he was attacked by sinful activities. But he did this out of anger. And he was, afflicted by sinful reactions. And so he took shelter of water, trees, earth, and women. So they were merciful upon him, and he was able to distribute the sinful reaction amongst these four personalities. But according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, some of that sin still remained. And this is what led to this situation with Vritrasura, was because there was still some sin in the heart. Otherwise, how could he kill a Brahmana? It wouldn't happen. But what it explains earlier on that with these different sins is I don't remember all the detail, but he deposited a degree of the sinful activity in water. So this manifested as bubbles in water. So when there's bubbles in water, you can't use it for anything. And also for the ladies, they took on part of the sin that manifests as the menstrual cycle, or as menstruation. Trees, sap. When you get sap from trees, you can't use that. It's actually considered to be sinful. And then also in the earth, I think it was deserts. Yeah, deserts. It's kind of interesting because in the centre of Australia is all desert. And it's interesting. Prabhupada, when he went to Australia one time, Hari Soriprabhu told this, that he said Australia was called, the name Australia comes from Astra, Australia. It's the country it's the place where the Kshatriyas used to go and test their astras. So that's why the whole centre of it is desert. So anyhow, that's just a bit of trivia. Anyhow, so he deposited this sinful reaction in these different places, and then he went on. But what happened then was Twasta, who was the father of Vishwarupa, he was really upset about this, so he did a sacrifice and he created from the sacrifice Vritrasura. And apparently what happened is this interesting thing is when you do yajna, you have to be very careful to make sure you utter the phrases correctly or the verses correctly, otherwise you can wind up with all different types of things. Like we look at Kumbhakarna. He mispronounced a line when he was seeking benediction, and rather than winding up with very powerful sleep, he wound up for sleeping a long time, and so he sleep for months and months and months at a time. He'd wake up, have something, and go back to sleep. I mean, what a terrible existence. And so Twasta also, he mispronounced one of the lines. So rather than the creation being Indra's enemy, he was the enemy of Indra. And it turns out that Vishwarupa was actually a great Vaishnava. And such a great Vaishnava we see from the previous chapters that he just understood this is destiny. I can't fight it. It's my destiny to be killed by Indra. So I'm going to, when Indra was becoming discouraged in the fight, because at one point Vritrasura, he knocked his thunderbolt from his hand, and Indra became discouraged, and he started to get all mental about it and didn't want to fight. And then Vritrasura was preaching to him, no, this is your duty, you have to fight. Pick it up and fight me. You're not in control of the destiny. The Supreme Personality of God is in control of the destiny. So he was preaching Krishna conscious philosophy. And we see in this story, there's two great devotees here. There's Indra, obviously a great devotee, but also there's Vritrasura. And at the end of this chapter, we see that Parikshit Maharaj is a little bit perplexed. How is it that this could happen? That Indra killed a Brahmana, and who was Vritrasura? And so he told the story of Chitraketu, and how Chitraketu had been cursed by Parvati to take birth as Vritrasura. And there's many nice statements from Lord Shiva in this story as well. But anyhow, so getting back to the main point of the story here, we see how Indra, as a result of pride, he offended his guru. And so his guru left him, and he became bereft of all auspicious results of his different. Even though it's described here in these verses, even though he was He had many good qualities, his determination, his opulence, etc. These were not enough to help him to overcome the results of his sinful acts. And so, because he had offended his guru, he became bereft of all the results of his pious acts, and he actually had to suffer in many different ways. So when he killed Vishvarupa, then he was afflicted by sinful acts, and then he was able to divest himself of most of that. But then again, when Twasta created this demon Vritrasura, all the Devatas and the Siddhas, or not the Siddhas so much, but the Gandharvas and all these different types of persons, the Bhutas and that, they became really concerned about this. And they approached Indra to kill Vritrasura. And Indra was like, no, I'm not. I've already done this once. I've killed a Brahmana. I got the sinful reaction. I don't want to go down that path again because it's just not worth it. And so obviously he's intelligent. He can see the result of his actions, whereas an intelligent person cannot see. Someone in the mode of goodness, they can see that if I act in this way, this will be the result. But someone who's absorbed by passion and ignorance, they just see the fruit, or the person in passion will see the fruit. The person in ignorance doesn't see any result. They just say, well, I want to do this, so they go out and do it. And they don't see that there'll be, what the reaction might be, or how this will affect me, or how this will affect others. They just know that I want to do this, so they do it. So this is the result of passion and ignorance. Whereas someone in the mode of goodness can see, if I do this act, this will be the result, and I will suffer as a result. So Indra was thinking in that way, that if I act in this way, I'm going to suffer the result. But then the sages, they said, no, we'll perform an Ashwamedha yajna for you. Don't worry, it'll all be all right. I mean, come on, it's like, anyone could believe that? It's like you're going to do this, and there won't be any sinful reaction because we'll do a yajna. This is very much like, I can't remember the verse from Padma Purana, but it's I think it's the seventh offense. It's like to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name. And this is, Prabhupada defines this, and Padma Purana also defines this, as being the most difficult offense to recover from. Because the only way you can recover from offenses is chanting Hare Krishna. But if you're committing sinful activities on the strength of chanting Hare Krishna, you can't recover. There's no recovery for that. And so in a similar vein, Indra was encouraged to commit these sinful acts on the strength of doing some atonement. So, don't worry, we'll fix it. We'll fix it all up. You'll all be okay. And so, according to the acharyas, this was actually more sinful. This killing of Vritrasura was more sinful than killing Vishvarupa, because the motive was wrong. Because previously just been out of anger, which is not good. To do something out of anger is not good. One's conscience becomes clouded with the mode of passion when you do something in anger, and you don't see things clearly. You don't see the results. But this time, he knew what the results were, but he was offered some carrot. Don't worry, you kill him and we'll fix it. But we see what happened was, again, he became afflicted with sinful reaction. And this the sin personified was pursuing him in this form of this old woman with tuberculosis, and there's a graphic description of what this woman looked like. Very, very horrible description. And the sages had promised, don't worry, we'll fix it, like this. But also what happened was they were also afflicted by sinful reaction. They also got the result of their karma. And this came in the form of because what happened was when Indra, when he was pursued by the sinful reaction, he was running all over the universe and he couldn't get away from it. She's shouting, wait, come here, And he was going everywhere very quickly and he couldn't get away from it. Finally, he went to Manasa Sarovar and he entered into the lotus stems, the subtle fibers in the lotus stems. And it's described by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that because there's different descriptions given, but it wasn't that the that sin personified couldn't go into the water. But actually what happened was that this Manasarovar was protected by the servants of Lord Shiva, so she couldn't enter there. But also this had a downside in that the servants of, there was one servant of Agnidev who was also Indra's attendant, and he would always bring Indra the fruits of the sacrifice, his share of the sacrifice. But he couldn't enter there also. So Indra became very, very hungry while he was there. But in the meantime, what happened is, like, he was there for 1,000 years in Manasarovar, in the lotus stems. And also that Lakshmi resides in the lotus stems as well. So she was protecting Indra as well. And he also got benefit from Lakshmi's association in that way and helped him to become purified. But what happened was they elected Nahusha to be Indra temporarily while Indra was in Manasarovar, because they need to have a leader of heavenly planets. Nahusha was just a mortal. He wasn't a Devata, he was just a mortal. He was son of Ayus. It comes in a line from Purushrava, I think. Yeah. Anyhow, so his sons Yati and Ayutta and all these different personalities. So he became Indra. But what happened is he became very proud because of all the opulence. And this is a really interesting story for us. Indra became proud of the opulence. Nahusha became proud of the opulence. So what does it tell us about opulence? That if you don't need it, if it's not necessary for your service, don't touch it. Stay away from it, because it can be very, very bewildering. Especially we see in this age of Kali how Parikshit Maharaj has given Kali this benediction where he can reside in the places where gold is stored, where gambling is conducted. So we can see, in these situations, Kali can enter into your consciousness and have a very, very powerful effect. And so Nahusha, the same thing happened as Nahusha took on the role of the heaven, being the king of heaven, Indra, and he became bewildered by the opposite, in the power, because he had so many great personalities bowing at his feet and things like that, and so he thought, well, now I'm Indra, and what's her name? I can't remember. Indrani, Indra's wife. Sachi, that's right, yeah. And so she's mine to enjoy now. And so he was making improper advances to Sachi. And she didn't like this at all. She felt very, very uncomfortable. So she went and spoke to... Huh? No, she spoke to some sage. It wasn't Shiva. Huh? No, that came later. She went and spoke to someone. I can't remember who it was. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur talks about it. And anyhow, so what to do about this? And he advised that you tell Nahusha that you'll accept his advances when he's carried, if he comes to you, carried in a palanquin that's carried by the sages. Yeah? So he said, okay, I'll do that. So he came on this palanquin, and one of the sages that was carrying was Agastya. And like he's saying sapa, or in Jaldi Koro, go faster, and so like he was urging him, he's getting excited, and he accidentally touched Agastya with his foot, and Agastya, he's got a bit of a temperament, and so he became quite angry at that, and he said, was it Sarpa Bhava, become a snake, and then in his next life he becomes a snake. And then this snake was actually, it's really interesting, this snake was actually liberated by the Pandavas. I think the snake grabbed, I can't remember the detail, but yeah, the Pandavas released the snake. So again we see, what happens. There's so many, pastimes described in the Bhagavatam, how when we become proud of whatever we have, we become proud of our position. This is very, very dangerous. And so we need to understand that whatever position we may have, whatever facility we may have in our devotional service, it's only as a result of the service. You may have a position, you may be the Sankirtan leader, you may be the temple president, you may be the zonal supervisor, you may be the GBC, you may be a guru. You have to remember, it's not a position, It's a service. As soon as you think it's a position and I'm important, that's the beginning of your fall down. You need to remember this is simply a service. And as quickly as the service comes, the service can be taken away. You've seen so many kings, so many great leaders. You've got your Napoleons, your Mussolinis, your Hitlers, and different kings and queens and things that they come and go. They come and go. It's just like they have these things called tumbleweeds. They just blow along. They're blown by the winds of the wind. So in the same way, we're blown through this creation by the winds of time. And we come, we have a position for a small amount of time, and just as quickly as we get the position, we lose the position. Sometimes we see people with great wealth, incredible wealth. We can't imagine how much wealth they've got. And just, a change in fortune, it's all gone. Overnight, there was a guy in Australia, and he was a very, very wealthy fellow. And through his wealth, he managed to, I don't know if you ever heard of the America's Cup. It's a famous yacht race. And for 150 or 60 years, the Americans always won it because they kept changing the rules so they could win it, And then one time, he built a boat that actually beat them, and they took the America's Cup. He was famous for that. But not long after that, he became very famous because of that. In Australia, at least. He was very, very famous. But not long after that, he lost all his wealth and became a pauper. He died a poor man with nothing. So everything in this material world is so ephemeral. It's all temporary. Nothing. You can have a beautiful, handsome, strong body. How long is that going to last for? A few years. You look at the beauty of a body, like a male body, female body, whatever. It looks attractive. But how long does that last for? It's all temporary. We should not be allured by these, attractive things in the material world because they are all temporary. But spiritual nature is eternal. The self is eternal. So rather than being enamored by the attractions in this material world, we should understand who we are. This is the process of Krishna consciousness, is to understand who we are. We're not this material body. We're not the things associated with the material body. And this is really interesting in the story of Chitraketu, which will be told at the end of this canto, is how Chitraketu, when he didn't have a son, and he was always feeling morose because he didn't have a son. So Narada, I think Narada or Angira, one of the Munis, they blessed him to have a son, and they said, but the son will be known as Harsha Shokha. It'll give you happiness, give you distress. He didn't care. I'll get a son. That's all I care. And so the son, was poisoned, died, and then he became immersed in lamentation. And then Narad Muni and Angira came to see him, and the whole kingdom was just immersed in lamentation. And so Narad brought the son back to life, and the son, and Chitraketu, oh my dear son, why did you leave us? And he says, father, son, who are you? Which father are you? I've had so many fathers. So the son, via the potency of Narad Muni, was preaching wonderful Krishna conscious philosophy, and actually explaining to him that you're not this material body, you're eternal soul. This is the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. This is what the Bhagavad Gita is teaching us, is we're not this body. And this was Arjuna's perplexity, is because he was identifying with the body and all those things related to the body he was identifying with as his own. He became bewildered, and he didn't want to fight because I don't want to kill my relatives because of the bodily connection. So if we get caught up in this bodily connection, we become bewildered and we don't understand how to act. And this is exactly what's going on in here. Is Indra has this great opulence. These sages, they have this position, they have wealth, they have whatever as a result of their positions. And they don't want to lose it because they see Vritrasura as a threat. And if Vritrasura is allowed to do whatever he does, then the Daityas will become prominent and we'll have to go hide in the clouds and all these other places again. So they're seeing their position being threatened, their temporary material position. And if you study the whole cosmology of the universe, you'll see that they only have these positions for a short period of time. Okay, maybe hundreds of thousands of years, but relatively speaking, in terms of the duration of the universe, it's a very short period of time. So whether you have a material body that lasts for 100 years, or, like for a day, some living entities only last for a few hours or a few minutes, or you have a body that lasts for many hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years, like Lord Brahma. I think he's 8 trillion years or something. From our perspective, that's a huge life, but it's still temporary. It doesn't matter what position you have in this material world, it's temporary. So don't be enamored by a position, understand it for what it is. It's just like, so Prabhu was saying things about the service I do, but it's just a service. Before me, Krishna Chaitanya Maharaj was doing it. After me, someone else will be doing it. It's just a service. So while you do the service, you do the best you can to fulfill the obligations of that service, but understanding that there's no great, I have no greatness. The only greatness we have is our connection with Krishna, our connection with the Guru Parampara. Through that, we have greatness. And through our ability to surrender to the process of bhakti, then we become known as being great. But it's what they call borrowed strength. It's all ultimately it comes from Krishna. So for me, this is one of the big lessons in this pastime, is it doesn't matter what you have in this material world, it doesn't matter who you are, what position you have, what opulence you have. If it's devoid of Krishna consciousness, it's just like, Prabhupada would say, it's just like a big turban on the head. When you fall into the water, you've got a big turban. All the turban does is it makes you drown faster. Any material facility you have only has one purpose, and that is to serve Krishna. The Prakriti is meant for serving Krishna. Because why? Because he's the proprietor. He's the owner of that Prakriti. So whatever situation we have in this material world, use it for Krishna. Otherwise, this situation can cause great calamity for you. And this is what we see is being demonstrated here in this story, is how Indra, because of pride, because he thought he was a big person, offended his guru, which led to him killing Vishvarupa and Vritrasura. So, great calamity for him. Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments? Yes, Prabhu. What's this for? Why?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you very much for a wonderful class. My question is, like, in certain positions of services and all, like, how do we protect ourselves from getting proud? Because how do we protect ourselves from getting proud?
Serve Vaishnavas.
Serve Vaishnavas.
Serve Vaishnavas. Always think yourself as a servant. Yeah? Just always think of yourself as a servant. When Rupa Goswami, I was reading this the other day. Actually, no, I was listening to Gopi Paranadhana. He was telling a class about Sanatana Goswami. So when Rupa Goswami and Sri Ballabh, when they went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even though Rupa Goswami was like, I think he was either Prime Minister or the CFO or something like that. They're very, very big people. Like, they ran the government. Between the three of them, they ran the government of Nawab Hussain Shah. So very, very powerful people. Yet when they came before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what did they do? They took a straw in their teeth and they bowed down at their feet.
That's precisely the question, like, how does that mentality come? Because obviously they are elevated, they are obviously they're part of the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's army, but for a conditioned soul like me, if in certain services, if by Krishna's arrangement or whatever, I have got better qualification and others are not having that qualification, I'm still doing that service. So
it's just material. It's temporary.
But it is engaged in the service.
Huh?
And that is being used in a service, particular service. So
I'm not understanding.
That particular qualification or ability is being used in a service only.
Yeah.
A service of devotees. So
but then you see that as a blessing from Krishna. Okay. Because there's a really interesting, in the 9th chapter of the 3rd canto, this is Lord Brahma's prayers for creative energy. So Brahma, he offers all these wonderful prayers to Krishna. And then Krishna says to him, he gives him like a reality check. He says to him, like, everything you do, even you're offering these prayers is my mercy. We see with Dhruva Maharaj, when he performed his, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, he performed his tapasya, standing on his toes with his hands stretched out for several months. And then Narayan appeared to him. And he became stunned because of the presence of Narayan. Then Narayan touched him with the conch. Then he was able to chant prayers. So we should understand that you have some material ability, fine. Where does that come from? Not from you. That's pride. If you think it's because of me, this is a demoniac mentality. It's Ishwaraham aham bhogi, siraham balavam sukhi. This is just because I'm thinking I'm the controller and I'm the doer. But a devotee understands none of these things. I'm actually Krishna's eternal servant. It's only by Krishna's mercy I have this position. It's only by Krishna's mercy I have this ability. It's only by Krishna's mercy that even I understand. There's a nice verse, Brahmanda Brahmatikona Bhagavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasad Kripa Poi Bhakti Lata Bij. The jiva is wandering throughout the universe, up and down through so many different systems, planetary systems, lives, things like that. But by the mercy of Krishna, one receives Guru. By the mercy of Guru, one receives Krishna. So it's all by mercy. Anything you have is by mercy. So we need to reflect upon that constantly. Reflect upon how everything we have in life is come about by the mercy of the Lord.
Thank you very much.
Never think it's come about by you. Because, you're anu, you're atomic, you're a tiny little jiva in the region of the heart. What can you do? Nothing. What's your ability? It's insignificant.
Thank you, Guruji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Guruji, you were mentioning about how Indra's sinful reactions were still there and that inertia caused him to again kill Vritrasura. So when somebody is subjected to this inertia of the sinful reactions, and what should he have done, or how should the situation be like?
This is explained here in later on in the pastime, because he goes to Manasarovar, he enters into the lake, he resides in the stem of the lotus. Before he does that, though, the sages advise him, okay, we'll do this Ashwamedha Yoga, but you should remember Narayan. And so he enters into the lotus stem, and there, to some extent, Lakshmi and Shiva reduce his sinful acts, and also his tapasya for 1,000 years. But the main thing that purifies him of his sinful acts is remembrance of Narayan. Because as it describes in the Bhagavatam in many places, actually the whole Bhagavatam, the point of the Bhagavatam is to show us the potency of the chanting the Lord's holy name. So in many places we see, I can't remember the verse, it says it's able to uproot the reaction to even the greatest sins, this chanting of the Lord's holy name. So this is what really purifies him. These other things have some effect, but if that's all he was to do, he would still be affected by this sinful reaction. But because he engages in this Vishnu Smarana, then he's purified. So this is the only way we can actually overcome. Because everyone in this material world, the very fact we're in this material world means we've been engaged in sinful activities. And so the only thing that's going to help us is chanting of Krishna's holy names. Nastyeva, 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 because there's no other way. Yes,
Prabhuji, we see that when Indra was swallowed by Vritrasura, then he did not die inside Vritrasura because he had Narayan's shield upon him, which he had got from Vishwarup. So one side, the understanding is that wherever there is protection of Narayan, one cannot be affected by anything, because he was protected because of Narayan's shield. So how is it that later sinful reactions are able to affect him, though he has Narayan's shield upon him?
Because he became absorbed in material consciousness. Because he did a sinful act. I mean, just because you take shelter of Krishna, doesn't mean you can do anything and get away with it. It's not like, like I remember years ago, when I lived in Melbourne, in Australia, and the devotees they did a play And it was kind of, it was making fun of Christians. I mean, I don't really get into that sort of thing. But one of the points they did I thought was interesting in that, like, you know, people would go out and do sinful activities in this play. And then when someone would approach them and say, oh, I'll just book it up to Jesus. You know, Jesus will save me from my sins. But and similarly, you have this idea of confession within Christianity, where people will go and to the confessional and confess all their sins and think they're absolved of their sins, then go out and perform more sinful activities. No, when you take shelter of Krishna, it means you taking shelter means I'm giving up this past life. You know, you have to stop performing sins, otherwise you'll again be overcome by sins. You know, it doesn't mean that just because you take the process of bhakti that you can do anything you like and you don't get reaction. If we perform material activities, we'll get reactions. And killing a Brahmin is very sinful. So that's why you got reactions.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for warning me and all of us for this dangerous pride which comes. So my question is, our bhakti is very powerful to eradicate the sinful reactions. It has no issue in that sense. Inertia of sins, etc., which affected Indra later. My question is, when we come to ISKCON administration and management, it is not just a position, but it's a devotional position which is given, which is generally encouraged also. Even if you don't want, sometimes it is given for the sake of spreading the moment, which is wonderful, which Prabhupada wanted. At the same time, there is a tendency to continue the position, as you said, that, the position being threatened, this problem comes. I am being honest with you. That we just want to drag along that, I have this and this is for me Vaishnava Seva. So I really want to drag. I am a brahmachari, I just want to drag. Or I am in charge of some voice, I just want to drag that. Although there are challenges, so there is a tendency to continue the position in service of Vaishnavas. But we don't see it as not fully as service, as you said very brilliantly, that as soon as you think it as position, then it's gone. As soon as you see service, there is no problem. So there is a in-between thing. So, and it causes offenses, which is very, very dangerous than sin. Sins I have no issues at all. But offenses. So how do we actually deal? Because position is not wanted, it is given sometimes, and we take it up also. Sometimes we want also, and it is given also. So it's quite a difficult situation.
Yeah, but just try to get a perspective on it, right? Your position is so tiny, really. Lord Brahma, he was given the job of creating the whole universe. That's a big job. Yeah? To be a manager in an ISKCON temple, I mean, it's quite small. Yeah? So but we think. I'll tell you an interesting story. Prabhupada was in Florida somewhere. I think it was Miami, and His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there. Now, this story, I'm not telling this story in any way to say anything bad about Tamal Krishna Maharaj, because he is a wonderful Vaishnava, a glorious Vaishnava. But it's a story that Prabhupada. And so there was some exchange between Prabhupada and Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And Prabhupada he said it's like this. He says, in Krishna's creation, in one corner of Krishna's creation, his unlimited creation, there's a small cloud. And in that cloud, there's this material universe. And there's countless millions of material universes, right? And in one of those one of the smallest universes is this universe we're in, right? And in this universe, there's so many thousands of stars and planets and all this type of stuff. And on one planet, there's this small country called America. And in this country called America, there's a city called Miami, and in this city called Miami, there's a Hare Krishna temple, and in this Hare Krishna temple, there's one Tamal Krishna Maharaj who's thinking he's so important. So look at the perspective. I mean, what is it you're doing? You're so small. If you look at it in the terms of the whole creation, it's so insignificant. But Krishna, out of his kindness, has given us some opportunity to render service. It's just like with deity worship. Prabhupada, sometimes he would call the deity the Archer Vigraha, the mercy incarnation. Krishna, out of his kindness, has descended in this form so we can have a relationship with him. Because we're unqualified. We have these material bodies. We can't touch spirit. We can only interact with matter. So he takes a form that appears to be matter so we can interact. So understand, whatever situation you have, it's simply Krishna's mercy upon me. Never forget that. As soon as you forget Krishna's mercy, you've fallen. As soon as you forget whatever position I have, whatever service I have, it's by Krishna's mercy, we become fallen. As soon as we start to think it's me, I'm the controller, I'm the doer, we're fallen. And Brahma, when he was given this service of creating the universe, he prayed to Krishna for, I think it's 4 things. He said, please protect me, that I never become affected by the material nature. Please empower me in my service, and please never allow me to deviate from the path of the service you've given me. I can't remember what the 4th one is, but he prayed like that. Even though he's a powerful creator, and he was able to take all these energies that Krishna had invested in his body and then create the whole universe from that, and the whole structure of the universe and everything. Get a perspective on it. Your service, Brahma's service, tiny. Just remember, I'm tiny, I'm so small. But by Krishna's mercy, you can achieve wonderful things if you become a fully surrendered servant to Krishna. But if we don't surrender, what can we achieve? We can achieve nothing. And even you see people in this material world, they achieve this thing, that thing, but what is it, It's nothing. It'll come and it'll go very quickly. So just keep it in perspective and pray. Pray for Krishna's protection always. Yes, Prabhu.
Guruji, can you please help me? I'm not able to understand. According to the last purport of previous chapter, Srila Prabhupada quoting Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur saying that Vritrasur had already left back to the kingdom of Sankarshan. He was already in state of Samadhi. And so in one sense, Indra had actually lost the battle. Because Vritrasur had already left when he swallowed Indra inside. So how to understand that Indra getting reaction for killing Vritrasur because he was already dead?
But his intention was there to kill him. And it's like, at least if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, Vritrasura spiritually was gone, but materially his form's still there. So he's getting a material reaction. Indra's getting a material reaction. But also, Indra's glorified as a great devotee because he's doing a service for the pleasure of the Lord, but he still has material desires. And also, like with a lot of these pastimes, we need to understand they are actually pastimes that are being executed for our benefit, so we can understand the reactions we get for performing simple activities, so we can understand how to be better devotees, how to act in this material world. So we can't necessarily take these things literally in the sense of, how come Indra this and how come Indra that, and just take the individual points that are being demonstrated there and just understand how to apply this. Because this is the real big thing with the Bhagavatam, is because Chaitanya Charan was just in Australia, and he did a presentation on speech, which I found really interesting. So he's talking about the power of speech, the purpose, the process of speech, and the purpose of speech. So ultimately, with you have to look at the purpose of speech, and part of the purpose of speech is you have to look at the application. It's like, okay, we may read these stories, hear the Bhagavatam, etc., but how do we apply it in our lives? That's what we have to look at in all these stories in the Bhagavatam, is how do I personally apply this? What do I learn from this that I can apply in my life? Because knowledge without assimilation and application is just knowledge, it's just gyan. It's of no particular value. So you have to assimilate that knowledge and then apply it in your life. So we see here in the pastimes of that are performed by Indra here, it's demonstrating to us what happens when you become proud. And you might see, like, with the commentaries of the Acharyas, there's many details they give which may seem contradictory at times. But they're not contradictory, they're just a different aspect of the same thing. So, yeah, for Vitrasura, yeah, he was gone. He was back to the spiritual world. But Indra, was still, killing him. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi.